welcome to the Passenger Seat Podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca and I'm out in some drizzly rain to go and visit my family for some Jubilee celebrations. It's been a busy few weeks and a busy weekend for a lot of people with Jubilee events on. So I'm going to get you kind of caught up on today's podcast with some of the stuff that we've been up to and some of the things that we've got kind of coming up in the next few days and week for Peggy and myself, because it's going to be quite a busy week and it's been one as well. My quirk of classic car ownership for you this week is how sometimes things can creep up on you with your car, even if you're using it daily and you're trying to look after it as best you can. And so it's always good to have a little bit of money aside ready for repairs, which unfortunately we've had to do quite recently, especially if you're daily in your classic and you want to carry on using it as regularly as possible. Like I said, in today's podcast, I'm just going to kind of catch you up on some of the things that me and Peggy have been up to recently, and some of the things that have happened and what we've got kind of coming up in the next week or so, and some exciting stuff and some a little bit worrying stuff, I guess. So obviously last week you had the wonderful interview with Charlotte Bowden, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. But prior to that, the last big adventure me and Peggy had was the trip to the motorist. And if you've not kind of seen what we did and what we were up to up in Leeds, then there's a podcast that you can check out on that as well. And it was a really wonderful adventure. But on the Sunday after that, we had a cars and coffee meet at the local kind of classic car restoration garage, Quest Brothers, who I've mentioned a few times. They organise the Classic Affair event that we go to in September, and also a couple of cars and coffee events locally. Really lovely local garage and lovely group of guys, and my parents were busy, so we went along with our friends who have recently bought the new Renault 5 for themselves, and so they went along in that. And on the way there, I did notice that there was quite a big bang coming from the back driver's side in the suspension. Basically, anytime we went over a speed bump or a big pothole in the road, we were finding that it was kind of making quite a bang noise. Quite a dull metallic sound. So we had a look underneath. We couldn't see anything obviously amiss. So we kind of went home, took the wheels off both sides so we could get a better look at the back suspension, to make kind of some comparisons between the side that wasn't making the noise and the side that was. And the only kind of thing that we could see is that the kind of bump stop was hitting the little metal plate more continuously and more seriously on this side. So something seemed to be, but that was like the only thing that we could spot. So what we did is I didn't have to go into work on the Monday, I didn't drive her then, and then on the Tuesday we had our local Peterborough Branch meet. So took Peggy along to that, and very kindly Lewis, who runs the Peterborough Branch, had a nosy underneath as well, and he could also see that it was definitely hitting that plate on the bump stop a lot more than it was on the other side. So he said that it means the bump stop's doing its job, which is good, but perhaps need to take it to a garage or someone who can have a proper look up on a ramp, and see if they can work out where it's coming from and why it's done what it is. So luckily, as I've mentioned before on the podcast, I have found a local garage that's really quite good at knowing about Morris Minors and being quite helpful for things. The guy there has got several classics of his own, and his friend has had a Morris Minor since they were in college that he's worked on. So he's really quite familiar with Morris Minors, so that's ever so handy to have locally. And so I took it along to him before work on the Wednesday morning, and he got it up on the ramp later that day and had a nosy underneath and was like, yeah, something's not stopping you bottoming out on the suspension. Because your bump stops and everything are doing what they're supposed to, it's not too much of a problem, but you would want to get something done sooner rather than later. At the minute, we're not 100% sure what the problem is. We're not sure if the leaf spring on that side has dropped, or if the shock absorber is kind of tired and worn out of oil, broken, or whatever. It's difficult to kind of tell until everything's really off. So I've done quite a hefty order from Ep7. Also got hold of an old set of leaf springs that are known to be good. Again, from Lewis in the local branch. If you've got a local branch for any of your car clubs, ever so handy to get involved in. And basically modern leaf springs are known to be kind of all right if you're only using the car for shows and things like that, but not very good long term because they seem to drop quite quickly. So getting hold of an older set was definitely the best option I could do, given that by the looks of it, Peggy's suspension hasn't really been worked on ever. It looks like she's possibly had some new bushes at one end of the leaf spring at some point, but really everything on the underneath seems to be as it was when it left the factory. So the leaf springs that are the original leaf springs have lasted 53 years and probably close to 125,000 miles. So hopefully these known good leaf springs will last a good few thousand miles on top of what they'd done previously. And perhaps if the roads weren't so full of potholes, which seems to be what's eventually finished Peggy's suspension off, we'd be in a much better situation. But alas. So we've bought all this stuff from Ep7, and she's booked in tomorrow actually at that garage for him to take apart the rear suspension, see if he can work out what it is, and put together kind of what needs putting back together with new parts. And new bushes and everything in there, seeing as everything's coming apart. And hopefully we'll be in a much better situation because we've got such a busy few weeks after this. We've got coming up next weekend the Singer National Weekend, which Peggy's going to be super spying her way back into again. First kind of big national whole weekend event that we've done this year, so really looking forward to that. We'll be going along with my parents with their singers, and hopefully having a really lovely dry sunny weekend up in Nottinghamshire. Then there's Father's Day weekend. Following weekend after that is the Morris Minors National Weekend up at Kelmarsh, and then we've got our holiday in the Lake District not too long after that as well. So really getting a brand new kind of rear end suspension couldn't come at a better time in terms of hopefully we get it all done and it means that she's all set for these summer adventures. But as she's a workhorse, and as the guy at the garage said, that it's fine as long as I'm reasonably careful and avoid as many of the kind of big potholes as I can to carry on using her. That's what we've been doing with Peggy. So aside from going to and from work, which I'm very good at knowing the potholes and where to avoid them on, so that's a bonus. We also had the young members meet over at Caffeine and Machine during the half term on Tuesday just gone, and that was quite a trip. I think that was about 2 hours over there, 2 hours back. Reasonably good for avoiding big holes, and quite a nice drive despite it being kind of drizzly and everything. I do quite enjoy the drive over to Caffeine and Machine from where we live, aside from just spending more time on the A14. Once you get to the other end of it's actually quite nice. It was absolutely throwing it down, and there wasn't a really good turnout, perhaps because it was midweek and an evening, but it was worth trying out, and we had a nice time sat there kind of watching the person do the new sign writing for the side of the building there, and chatting to Stephen, who had made the trip over in his Subaru Impreza from actually quite local to us. So we travelled quite a way for essentially a pizza. Jamie got a hoodie and a chat with a guy who didn't live that far away from us anyway. But it was a nice trip out, especially as I'd got some annual leave off during the half-term break, and so enjoyed kind of making the most of just having a little evening out kind of thing. And then just yesterday, Saturday, we were out with the Peterborough Branch displaying outside Peterborough train station. Earlier in the year, I stumbled across an event that was being hosted by the train station for the Jubilee outside the train station, and they were looking for classic cars and classic car groups to come and display outside the train station and catch the eyes of as many people who were kind of going past as possible, and just brighten their day during the Jubilee celebrations. So we went along with Peterborough Branch. Mum and Dad came along again in some of their singers. Lulu the chamois got an outing, and Emma the singer junior got an outing, and it was reasonably nice. Stayed dry for a lot of the day, and we had quite a good turnout. It was great to see so many people kind of coming out of the station and being quite surprised by us all parked up there, and taking an interest and taking some photos with the cars. And also I had the opportunity to wear a cosplay from my other hobby, which I'd worn to MCM Comic Con the week before, but actually wear it with the car and get some photos with Peggy and the cosplay of her namesake. So that was quite nice. It was a really nice display of cars, and quite a lot of variety as well, especially considering it was all kind of decided quite late notice, and I know that a lot of local people had decided to go over and do the Sandringham pageant of motoring and things like that. But I think it was a really nice day altogether, and we had a nice day out in reasonable sun occasionally. It wasn't too hot, but it was nice enough, and it stayed dry for most of the day, unlike today, before we kind of headed back to my house, and me and my family had a barbecue. So despite kind of Peggy's slight ailment at the moment, we have been busy. We've been out and about enjoying ourselves, and we've got loads of things to look forward to, provided that tomorrow with the garage goes all to plan. So hopefully you'll have seen over on my social medias how that all went, and you've got your fingers crossed for her if you've not checked it out, and we'll be back again next week, hopefully with our kind of report on the Singer National weekend. But I'd love to hear what you guys have been up to. Did you get your cars out and about to any Jubilee events? What did you find yourselves getting up to over that really long bank holiday? Did you have some work that needed doing on any of your cars? But in the meantime, drive safely and happy motoring.